Hey guys, I'm back with another GoPro tips and tricks video. In this video, I'm going to be talking and showing how to move the dive housing's lens onto another case. So this is in case you've got a dive housing, but let's say you're a scuba diver and you really like the GoPro's wrist housing for diving with. And they just don't make a dive housing with a wrist housing, and they also don't tell you how to change it. So we're going to do it today. What you're going to need for this is a special screwdriver. Make sure I get the screwdriver in focus here. Alright, so the important part of this screwdriver is that it comes with a T6 right there. That's the screwdriver head you need to take off the dive housing's lens. So it's got to have a T6, and then of course if it has a small Phillips, or yeah, a small Phillips or Robertson, it's a good idea. We're going to I'm going to open up my screwdriver here. I got this at Home Depot, was a couple bucks. And then we will go ahead and remove the lens from here, and we'll take the lens off the dive housing, and then, we'll take the lens off the dive housing, the lens off the wrist housing, and then we'll put it back together. So we end up with a dive housing lens on the wrist housing. Open up the screwdriver here. This is a multi-head screwdriver. You don't really need this if you just find a T6, and you should be fine. Alright, so there it is. We're going to go and get how do I get the bits out of this? Let me see. Alright, there's our T6 bit. Get this one out. We'll take the lens housing, the dive housing lens off first. So we need the T6 bit in there. Put the rest of this aside. And then we're just going to take out all of the screws that hold the dive housing lens on. Then we're really slowly going to lift off the outer portion of the lens's housing right there. Put that aside. The piece of glass comes off next with the O-ring attached to the bottom of it. It is an incredibly thick piece of glass. I had no idea it was going to be this thick. That's like about, what is that, almost, it's like 1/8 of an inch thick glass right there. That's incredible. Put that aside, and then there's 6 more screws, 6 more screws to take out. These are the ones that correspond to the other lenses. This is where the lens gets mounted onto the other housing. With these screws, we'll pop these ones out. And then lift that off, making sure we don't lose the O-ring or any of the screws. Put that aside. Alright, there's the dive housing. We can put that aside. Don't need that anymore. That housing is just like any of the other housings. So if you want to when we take this lens off here, we can put it back onto that housing. Now we have to change heads because GoPro uses a different bit for this. So I'm going to get that one onto the screwdriver. Alright, there's the outside bevel that holds it all on, and then the lens itself with its O-ring comes off. Now we'll grab the bottom part of the dive housing's lens, and it'll just fit right on here. We'll just make sure we get the O-ring in the right spot so it goes around the outside of the. Be very, very careful with the O-rings. Make sure that they go on properly. That's really what keeps your camera waterproof. So very important the O-rings go on properly. Then change back to the other screwdriver head. Back to the T6. Tighten these down. Remember, they should go in easily. If it starts to be a struggle to put them in, you're stripping something, stop, back it off, and make sure it goes in quite easily. The holes in the GoPro are tapped, so there should be no fighting to put any of these in. You don't want to over tighten them, because then you'll have you might strip the plastic, and then that's really not good. So you want them the same tightness as they were when they came out. You can judge that. Not too loose, not too tight. So there's the lens. The first part of the GoPro dive housing's lens put back on. We'll get the glass and the O-ring. Mine are still stuck together. If they're not, you can just put the O-ring into this little river or channel around the lens. Make sure the dent in the glass goes where the button is. Slide this in here. Like I said before, make sure you get the O-ring in properly. And also make sure you don't touch the inside of the lens when you're doing this, because if you do, there's no way to get those fingerprints off. Now pick up the outside of the piece that's used to hold the whole lens together. Fit it on top, just like that. And then tighten up all the screws. You'll use half of these steps if you ever change the glass in the dive housing. If you want to put in, there's a couple pieces of colored glass you can buy that fit inside this dive housing that are used for color correction while diving. So if you're diving down to a certain depth, there's different colored lenses you can get to make all the colors at that depth look natural. Guys, that was a how-to video on changing the dive housing's lens onto a wrist housing. So what we've got now is the wrist housing, which scuba divers are really a fan of. It's a great way to keep the camera from moving around. And what we've done is we put the dive housing's lens onto it. So now we have the wrist housing with a dive housing's lens. And now we just have another HD housing. We've taken the lens off of this. We're going to go put it on the wrist housing. I'm not going to do that right now, but you just put the lens on here, put the screws in, and that's taken care of. So you don't lose a housing when you do this. You just change which one is your dive housing, which one is the dive housing. Really easy to do, really simple. If you want to change housings too, you can do that. One thing I would note with this is make sure that once you put this on, you test it in the water to make sure it's still waterproof before you actually put your camera in it to go diving. I just take it in the bathtub for a while, put a piece of paper towel in it or something, and see if it leaks. If it does leak, you've done something wrong with one of the O-rings. So do this at your own risk. Of course, if the camera leaks, I don't want you coming back and being like, it didn't work, it's your fault. It's not. You didn't do the O-rings properly. Yeah, so that's all it is. Cheap screwdriver, T6 bit on the end of it. That's all you need to undo this housing and swap the dive housing's lens from the dive housing onto any other GoPro housing you want. In this case, we moved on to the wrist housing. Great for diving. Guys, thanks for watching. That was a GoPro tips and tricks video talking about how to move the dive housing's lens off of its case onto a different one. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe and check out my channel for lots more videos. Till next time, thanks for watching.